What is going on, everyone? My name is Andy. Welcome back to another FPL video. In this one, it's the FPL preview for Game Week 38. The final one, plenty of stuff to cover in this as well. So we got Calvert-Lewin Replacements, and Man United going to rotate. Got Differentials, of course, going to take a look at the fixtures just to see how they might play out, which fixtures have got goals, which fixtures could be duds. All that good stuff. There's loads in this one, so please do give it a like if you enjoy it. Hit that subscribe button if you're new around here, and let's jump into the first topic. Okay, so let's look at the fixtures first of all. I don't usually do this on these videos, but this is the last day. If you're bringing in a player, all they've got to do is well in this fixture. It doesn't matter about their run of 4 or 5 games, because nobody has that anymore, right? So I'll try and go through as quickly as possible, because there are 10 matches, but we're just going to talk about how different teams might do, how they might approach the game and stuff like that. So Arsenal versus Brighton doesn't have a huge amount riding on it, but I'm looking at the league table, and Arsenal now have leapfrogged Leeds. I can't remember when they did that. Maybe they did that a while ago, but they're on 58 points. They're only 1 point behind Everton and 1 point behind Spurs. They can't get any higher up the table than 7th, but if Everton against Man City and Spurs against Leicester drop points, either draw or lose, then Arsenal got a chance of finishing 7th, which I know is not great for Arsenal, right? They would expect more. But given how the season's gone, it wouldn't be that bad, especially to finish ahead of Spurs, right? So 7th place is probably, well, is the best they can get. And I don't think it's that bad of a goal to go for. And they're in front of fans. I think Tierney's back now. They just play better when he's in the side. And Brighton have got literally nothing to play for. Okay, they could get a little bit higher up in the table. They could finish 13th, for example, if everything else went their way. But I just think Arsenal are going to edge this one. I think I can see a few goals from Arsenal. I don't know what it is, gut feeling or otherwise, that Arsenal might put 2 or 3 past Brighton. Even though I fully agree that Brighton are quite a good defensive team, I'm going to back Arsenal in this one. Villa versus Chelsea. I think any of the games involving Chelsea, Liverpool, Leicester, where they've still got a possibility of getting top 4, could be cagey, right? I think a lot of it depends on how the game's going to go. Will depend on how quickly the first goal goes in and who it goes to, right? Chelsea, we know, are a very, very good defensive team. If they take a while to score their goal, how nervous will they get, right? If they drop points, so they're on 67, Liverpool are on 66, and so are Leicester. If they draw or lose, then Leicester just need to win. They don't need to go for a massive score. So I think Chelsea will edge this one because their defence is just too good. Even with Grealish back, I think it'll be like 2-0. So I would back Chelsea attackers and maybe even their defence, but don't completely rule out Grealish. He's back. He's got a point to prove. He wants to get in that England squad. That could be quite a fascinating game. Fulham versus Newcastle is really difficult to call for me because my gut instinct is that it'll be quite open because neither team's got anything to play for. One's relegated, one's safe. But Fulham didn't really play like that against Man United. They tried to keep it quite tight, although Man United did get a good few chances. Obviously, Newcastle not at home anymore. Will they care? I don't know. I think this one's going to be low scoring. I'm going to go 0-0 or 1-1 in the game like this. Leeds versus West Brom. If you saw me on the FPL show, this is the game outside of Man City which I expect goals in. Neither side, in terms of league position and stuff, really has too much to play for. Again, Leeds, like Arsenal, could still finish. I think they could finish around 7th or 8th, depending on however scores go. But really, they're probably not going to jump up the table too much. But first game in front of fans in the Premier League for a very long time. West Brom got nothing to play for. They're down and out. I could see Leeds putting 3 or 4 goals past West Brom. I really could. I think they're going to play it just like they've played every other game this season. Go gung-ho pretty much. Obviously, keeping a lot of the ball, sprinting all over the place, winning it back quickly and just going on the attack. So I really rate this one. Leicester versus Spurs is really interesting because Leicester, realistically, right, if Chelsea and Liverpool win, then for Leicester to get top 4, they would have to score like 5 or 6 goals. It's just not going to happen, right? So I think the play from Leicester is keep it tight, right? Don't just absolutely go for it and leave yourself exposed at the back and just hope that either Chelsea or Liverpool drop points, right? If Chelsea draw or Liverpool draw, then Leicester just need to win, okay? That's it. It doesn't matter if it's 1-0, 2-0, 2-1, whatever. They don't need to win 6 or 7-0. So I think it would be a mistake from Rodgers to go all-out attack from the start just to try and beat Liverpool on goal difference. They've got to hope that Villa or Palace do them a favour and then make sure they're in a good position to win it. Obviously, depending on how their game is going and the other games, like Chelsea and Liverpool in particular, they might just absolutely take the handbrake off and just go for it. But I don't see that from the start. They've only kept 1 clean sheet in 8. Spurs' defence is nothing to write home about. I think Kane and Son will probably do better away from home than they did in the last match now. Now I've seen it. Like, how can they play any worse? And Iheanacho has just been so good. I think he will easily break down the Spurs' defence. So I think Leicester will try and keep it tight. And I think a lot of it will depend on how the rest of the games go. But I can see like a 2-1 here. Maybe to Spurs, maybe to Leicester. If the other results don't go their way, then Leicester might just go for it. That will leave space in behind for Son, etc. Liverpool versus Palace. Comfortable Liverpool win for me here, 2-3-0. I can't really see too much else. Obviously, Nat Phillips and Reece Williams are there for the taking. So Zaha and Benteke and co might absolutely just go for them. But that will leave space in behind. So I think comfortable Liverpool win. Man City Everton, I don't care who Man City put out, whether they rotate the whole 11 or not. They're winning this game, 2-3-0 I would say. Sheffield United versus Burnley. I think Burnley kind of played quite well in attack versus Liverpool. I know they didn't really create a huge amount of clear-cut chances, but they had their chances. And I think they'll do perfectly fine against Sheffield United. I think Chris Wood, etc., will be decent in this one. Who knows how many minutes they'll get, right? But I could see a few goals in this one, I think. I just don't think Burnley are going to care about defending too much. And Sheffield United, okay, it's in front of fans. Maybe they want to give their fans a send-off and will try and keep it tight. But I don't know if they can. West Ham, I think, will beat Southampton again. West Ham have got quite a bit to play for. They could still, actually, they can't finish fifth now. Looking at it, the best they can do is sixth. Goal difference wise, I'm just having a look. So West Ham 12. Yeah, so West Ham just need a point to stay in sixth. They might not risk it too much, but again, I could see like a 2-0 comfortable win here. And Wolves versus Man United is all about how much Man United rotate, which I'm going to talk about later on. I think this is going to be one of the duds of the game week, so I'm going to go for a 1-1. So there you go. That's how I think it'll plan out. Leicester in particular, I think everyone thinks they're going to go for goals. I don't think that's going to be the case straight away. So everybody wants a differential this week. It's one of the biggest questions I've seen. I'm sure all podcasts and videos and stuff are discussing this. So I've gone for differentials in defenders, midfielders and forwards. And this is basically their name, their price, and then their ownership in the top 10,000. Now, I know not everyone's going to be in and around that, but it gives a good kind of estimate of what active ownership is. So all of these players are below 7%, I think. I think the highest is Chris Wood. No, sorry, the highest is Willock, actually, at 6.32. So they're all 6.32% or less. And maybe I could have added a risk factor because they're not all without risk, right? Some of these players, not only do I not know whether they'll start, I also don't know how many minutes they'll get, right? But that's part of the differential punt. And you need to decide how kind of differential, how much risk you want to take. And I'm going to talk about that as well later on. There's a lot coming up in this show. So defenders, I've gone for Tierney, James and Robertson. In my opinion, unless your team is absolutely brilliant and you've got really nothing to play for, you really want to consolidate, if you're going to bring a defender in on the last day, surely it's got to be an attacking defender rather than just bringing in like a centre-back that's just going to maybe get you a clean sheet, a bonus point if that. So Tierney, James and Robertson, I think, are all attacking. Tierney I just spoke about. I think Arsenal will do okay against Brighton. Maybe part of that pick is me, like I think it was last season or the season before, I think he got like an 18-pointer. Brighton are no pushovers, but I don't think Mopé's suspended. I think Welbeck's injured. So they are quite light going forward. So I quite like Tierney. I right now, he's probably unless we get early team news, he's probably my transfer in. 0.11%. Reece James 1.05. Again, in Chelsea, you could go for Chilwell instead, for example. I think his ownership's a little bit higher, but it depends how much money you've got to spend because Chilwell's more expensive. But I quite like Reece James. He should start. I don't see Hudson-Odoi starting on that right side, and hopefully he'll be back to right wing back. And then Robertson, again, another good fixture. 3.94%. Whether or not you go defender or attacker for Liverpool, again, I'm actually talking about that a bit later as well. But I like Robertson. There's nothing wrong with him. If you want to double up on Liverpool defence, 3.94%. He showed what he could do last week as well. He's a great option. A few more midfielders to choose from. With defenders, I couldn't see too many more, but let me know in the comments below if you've got some more yourself, right? I'll reply back to as many as I can. Aubameyang, again, if you're going to back Arsenal, 0.08%. Imagine him at the start of the season. He was in nearly all of our teams for the first two fixtures, and now we've just forgotten about him. He's very expensive, don't get me wrong. But if you've got that kind of money to spend, maybe you could go for him. Should start. What I would say is, for anyone you're not sure about starting, is check the predicted lineups under the team news tab on Fantasy Football Scout. because Neil will do his predictions, and they're usually quite good. Of course, Game Week 38 is the hardest week to call, or Man City any week at all, but I think Aubameyang will start. Grealish is on the list just because I think he's been great this year when he's been fit, and he's very low owned, but it is Chelsea, right? So I think your ceiling for Grealish is probably quite low, but it felt wrong not to talk about him at least a little bit. Pulisic, I really like. I didn't think he'd be that low, 0.02%. I think Chelsea definitely score against Villa. Who's going to line up? We don't know. If Havertz is back fit, he could be in the middle. It could be Werner on the left and then Mount on the right, in which case Pulisic would miss out. But if Tuchel says that Havertz is still out, it could be Werner in the middle, Pulisic and Mount either side. So again, you're going to have to look at press conferences. Unfortunately, as always, I've got to record this before the press conferences. But Pulisic definitely an option. Torres 1.88%. Again, Man City, get whichever forward to start, right? And if we don't know, you have to decide whether you want to take a risk. But he hasn't started since Game Week 36. Sorry, he did start in 37, but he went off early. So I think there's a chance he plays again. Willock, don't need to talk about it. We talked about him last week, but he's still only 6.32%. And obviously these percentage ownerships will go up, but not by a huge amount, I don't think. Willock against Fulham, again, I think that could be quite low scoring, but Willock can't stop scoring himself. So if it is 1-1, maybe he gets the goal. Bale's still only 4.88%, and he will play for sure because he didn't start the last game. And again, I do think there's goals in it for Spurs. I just don't think it's necessarily going to be like another 5-4, but it doesn't have to be that to get a decent amount of points. And then forwards-wise, Wood you all know about, good fixture. I think if you're looking at a Calvert-Lewin replacement, there's better options, but if you want to go differential, then Wood could be the one. Werner only 0.00%. I know he's done awful this season, but he keeps getting into the right positions. Imagine if this is the week where he goes nuts, right? 2 goals, hat-trick, whatever it might be. I think he has the potential to do that, but also the potential to frustrate. So again, how different do you want to go? Firmino 0.59%, great fixture for Liverpool, and then Rodrigo at 0.3. Now, last week a lot of people thought Rodrigo would start and Bamford wouldn't. They started together, which is a good thing. There's no guarantee he starts again this week, but I think he probably will. And so I think Bamford's still the better pick, in my opinion, but for 0.3% ownership and a cheaper price, you could look at Rodrigo. I think Bielsa's already had his press conference. He hasn't really mentioned whether he'll start or not, but there's got to be a good chance, right? So that's the differentials. Let me know below if you've got any different ones. Okay, so I won't spend a huge amount of time on this, but for people that are looking getting rid of Calvert-Lewin, definitely think it's a good move. Like, you can tell me about his record versus Man City or the fact that Man City might rotate. I don't care. It's a hard fixture. And if I had the spare transfer, I didn't have a bigger priority in my team, I would transfer him out. The two for me are easily Bamford and Antonio. I've put Chris Wood on and Iheanacho kind of out of respect. And I didn't want to go further up in price like Firmino, Werner, Kane, etc. because not everyone's necessarily got that much money. It might just be a straight swap out for Calvert-Lewin. But for me, it's between Bamford and Antonio. They've got great fixtures. Their numbers are better than Chris Wood. For Iheanacho, you can see his numbers there, the 0.65. That's expected goal involvement per 90 minutes. He didn't start last week, by the way, but I do think Rodgers will rectify that and put him straight back into the starting lineup this week. It's just, he is the one that's getting the goals, right? He has been for a while, and he came on against Chelsea and scored again. So I think he will start. Spurs at home, it is the most difficult fixture out of all 4. I think we can all agree on that. But it's maybe not as difficult as it has been in the past. So I don't begrudge anyone bringing Iheanacho in or playing them if you still own him. But I think if you haven't already got Bamford and Antonio, they have to be the one. Which one's best? It's really difficult. Bamford's got the easier fixture, just about. Antonio's got the better numbers. Bamford's got penalties, although FPL Bielsa on Twitter, not Bielsa himself, but a fan, told me that if Pablo Hernandez plays, he might be the penalty taker. He is their penalty taker, basically. So we don't know if Bamford would take it or not. Antonio wants to take penalties. Will he get them? We don't know that either. So for me, I'm just gonna back Bamford because I backed him 2 weeks ago and I haven't really changed my mind. I love Antonio. If you want to bring Antonio in, he is great, right? I would not argue against him at all. I just think West Ham kind of just need a point. So will they absolutely go for it? I mean, it's Southampton at home, so it's a good fixture. And look, if Antonio came away with a hat-trick, I would not be surprised. But I do really think Leeds are just going to take it to West Brom. So I'm going to say, in order, Bamford, Antonio. I'm going to say Chris Wood because I always back the fixtures, and then Iheanacho as my 4th choice. Okay, so big question on a lot of people's minds is, will Man United rest players for Wolves? And obviously then, should you sell them, right? So at the bottom is the recent schedule for Man United and how the season's going to end. So we know from the 9th to the 13th of May, there was that crazy schedule where they played 3 games in 5 days. Villa, Leicester, Liverpool. Then it was Fulham. Then we got Wolves and then the Europa League final. So against Villa, it was pretty much full strength. Big changes against Leicester, but Greenwood started again. Greenwood then didn't start against Liverpool, but outside of that, it was pretty much full strength. Fulham was pretty much full strength as well, although Rashford didn't start. And I do expect him to start the Europa League final. So I'm not 100% sure what's going to happen there. And then obviously it's Wolves and it's Wolves then the Europa League final, right? So here is what Solskjaer has said this morning. Let me just find it. You want to go into the final with loads of energy, i.e. rest players, right? So they got lots of energy in the final. But you also want lots of confidence, i.e. try and win the game. Because Man United haven't won since Villa. They lost to Leicester, lost to Liverpool and drew with Fulham, which is not good. Okay. Now above are the 4 kind of main players that most people own. I think they're the highest owned players at Man United, right? And I think for Luke Shaw, it could be similar to Wan-Bissaka. I think Wan-Bissaka actually might start, but there's only 2 days full rest between Wolves and the Europa League final. I just don't see why he would risk it, right? Even between Fulham and the Europa League final, there's 7 days rest. That's just like a normal week where there's no Europe, Saturday to Saturday deadline. You get 7 days rest, maybe 6. So I don't see the benefit. I get it that you want to go in winning, but are you telling me if Man United don't beat Wolves, they either draw or they lose, that the players are going to be downbeat going into a final, getting the chance to win another trophy? Bruno Fernandes, do you think he's going to let players do that? I'm not convinced. So I still think there's more chance of a rest than not a rest. The 4 highest owned players, maybe Rashford and Wan-Bissaka are higher owned than Cavani. I don't know. But these are the 4 I've put on. For me, Cavani, there's no chance of him starting. I just don't see why he would. 2 days rest is not enough for him. We've seen that this season. He has to be safe for the final. I've got no doubts about that at all. Luke Shaw, I also think, will not start. I think Tellez will play in place. I think losing Maguire was big. You lose Shaw as well. It just doesn't look good at all. So I think both of those are not starting. I think Fernandes has a slight chance. His injury record is very good. His fitness levels are very good. He could easily play Fulham, Wolves and the final without any issues. If I had him and I had no other priority transfers, I would consider transfer him out. I think even if he starts, the minutes have to be managed. Like, as a Man United fan, I'd be extremely disappointed to see Fernandes start. It's just not worth the risk. He is not the player that needs confidence and motivation going into the final. Absolutely not. So I think there's a slight chance of him playing just because he always plays. And obviously they have had 4 days rest in between Fulham and Wolves. So if you've got, I don't know, if you've got like Jota still hanging around and you need to get rid of him, you've got Calvert-Lewin, you can transfer him to Antonio or Bamford, then I might think about keeping Fernandes instead of taking a hit. But if I had him and I wasn't worried about the rest of my team, I probably would take the risk on transferring him out. I think Greenwood's probably got the best chance of all of these of starting again because I don't think he necessarily starts the Europa League final. And I do agree. I don't think Solskjaer will make 11 changes, but I wouldn't be surprised if it's far off. So if you've got Man United players, I would be slightly worried. But it's all going to come down to what the other players in your team are. Like if you've got injuries and stuff like that, then Man United aren't at the top of your list to sell, and I probably wouldn't take hits to do it either in most cases. Okay, so let's talk about hits and risk. Like how much risk should you or could you take? Now this is, the numbers on the left are the points that you're behind. I've taken this from a I'm chasing perspective, but you could also apply it to if you're leading, right? If you're leading by 1 to 10, you probably don't need to do too much difference. If it's overall rank, you probably don't need to worry at all. If you're chasing a mini-league leader, then maybe you look at who they're going to captain, maybe match them or go slightly different. But this is mostly for if you're chasing. If you're 30 plus ahead in league, stop panicking, I would say. Even 21 to 30 points, right? So if you're 1 to 10 behind, play it cool. Right? You don't need to go massively differential. You can easily make up 10 points in 1 week. It's not necessarily, something that's definitely going to happen, but it's something that can, if someone said, I need to make up 10 points, yeah, definitely doable in 1 week. Maybe you need to bring in a differential. And if it's a mini league, if your team is looking really good and it is maybe 2 to 3 players different to your rival, I wouldn't really change your tactic too much, right? I would just hope that those players come off and do you better than kind of 1 to 10 points, right? So play it cool. You don't need to start stressing too much. 11 to 20 behind, it gets a bit more difficult. Again, whether it's rank or mini league, you probably need to either bring in a differential player, or you need to bring in a differential, captain a differential. Now, when I say captain a differential, I don't mean that you have to go and find someone that's 0.01% owned, that hasn't scored a goal for 15 game weeks or something like that, very unlikely to score, just to captain them. I mean, instead of the obvious Salah, maybe you go Bamford, maybe you go Antonio, maybe you go Mane, maybe you go for a Man City midfielder, Pulisic, whoever it might be. Someone you know that on their day can hit double figures, right? And then you just hope that Salah blanks. Obviously, if he doesn't, then it's going to be difficult. But this is the last day now. At some point, you've probably got to take some risks. This is the bracket I'm in, by the way. So I need 17 points to hit top 1k. And again, this is all going to come down to your own kind of goals for the rest of the season. So for me, I could bring in a differential player and captain a differential, but I'm also a little bit worried about losing my rank from where I am, because this is going to be my best ever finish. So you have to decide your own goals. But 11 to 20, I think you're definitely in the zone of differential captain and maybe bringing in a differential player, but one or the other. With 21 to 30 points, you have to captain a differential, in my opinion. If you go Salah captain, the only way you're making up 21 to 30 points is if your team is completely different to your mini league or the rank. So for my team, I've got like Bamford, Rafinha, Kane, Son, Lingard. They are not differentials, right? That's not going to help me get out of the ranks. So I've got to bring someone in that's different. Maybe even captain a differential. So if we're looking at Torres was less than 2%, Pulisic was less than 0.05%, I think. If you captain them, you've got both things combined. But still, you need them to absolutely go off, and for the most likely captains to not score too many points. You're hoping for a lot. Like 21 to 30 points is difficult in a week. It's unlikely, but you have to go different. Maybe at that point, you are looking at a massive punt. Maybe not even Bamford Antonio, maybe Rafinha instead of Bamford, for example. If you're 30 plus, you either need to go all out. So hopefully you've already planned for this. I wouldn't take loads of hits, that's for sure. I'll come on to hits in a minute. But you need to go all out differential. Captain someone crazy, maybe bring in someone crazy. You either do that to try and get 30 plus points, or you consolidate. You think, right, okay, this season I can't make up those 30 points. I'm happy-ish where I am. I'll just try and stick with it and maybe get a differential or just captain the most obvious player. 30 plus points is difficult. It's doable, but it's extremely hard, especially at this stage of the season when so many teams are the same. In terms of hits, I would really limit them, right? Just think of it like this. If you're 20 points behind, well, if you take one hit, you're suddenly 24 points behind. Is that player going to make up 4 points in 1 week? If you're looking at maybe taking out an injured player, taking out another player you're not sure about, and bringing in 2 massive differentials, one of which you're going to captain, then yeah, okay, there's scope for big points if it all comes off. Obviously, the flip side is if it goes wrong, you fall back further. But for some people, this is the risk down you need to take. So I would really try and eliminate risks. I think on stream the other day, someone put up a -12 for a bench boost that I kind of liked. But for non-bench boost, in almost all scenarios, -8s, -12s, you don't want to do them, right? It's usually when you take a hit, you're bringing in a player for like 4 to 5 weeks, and you're hoping that over that course of the season, over those game weeks, they'll make that hit back up. Very difficult to do that in 1 week. So -4 for most people are the absolute most. But yeah, figure out how far behind you are, figure out how much you want to risk it, and then decide the players from there. That's right, there's more. This is all the stuff that I didn't want to cover separately that I'm going to just do at the end, like a Q&A style thing. So, hits to block mini league rivals. I'm all up for this. Now, it depends on the players and how far you're ahead, because if you're only ahead by 1 or 2 points, right, or even like 3 to 5, then taking the hit pretty much narrows the gap. So I would only do that if it was a big player that my rival had. So extreme example is, for some reason you don't own Salah and your rival does, that's probably a good player to bring in and block. If you're like 15 to 20 points ahead and you know your rival managers are going to bring in whoever it might be and captain them, and you know that for sure because they might be tricking you, you could take a hit and just block it, because captain's such a big source of points. If you match your rival, they've got to make up like 15 to 20 points from the rest of the team, and that's pretty difficult in 1 week. Goalkeeper transfer / hit. So a lot of people have been screwed over by goalkeepers. And a lot of people are looking to take a hit. In my opinion, in most cases, I wouldn't take a hit. The goalkeeper ceiling is very low. So if you've not got a goalkeeper, you bring him in, it costs you 4 points. They have to hit 4 just to break even. So it has to be a clean sheet. If they don't get a clean sheet, you're relying on saves. And they would have to get 9 saves, maybe 6 saves plus some bonus, again, to almost just break even or just get ahead. So it's not nice going in with 10 players. And to be honest, if it was my team, I probably would take a hit. But logically, I'm not sure it's worth it for 1 week. Right? If you've got a goalkeeper that could start but you're not sure, I definitely wouldn't do it. If you've got someone that's been ruled out or the manager has said they're not going to play, you could consider it. But in most cases, I don't think I would do it. Like, I just think even if you bring in Edison, best case, he gets a clean sheet. So you get 6 points. You've taken a hit. You've gained 2 points. Which, don't get me wrong, obviously 2 points is great. But if they concede again, then straight away you're not going to get those points back. So in most cases, I wouldn't take a hit. I also probably wouldn't even want to make a goalkeeper transfer. Surely most teams have got something more important to do. Bring in a better captain, bring in a better attacker. I've got Martinez, right? Could I swap to, not Alisson because I've got 3 Liverpool, but Alisson, Edison, etc. I'd probably gain like 2 or 3 points at the absolute most. Absolute most. If I change an attacker and they go off on one, that could be like 5, 10, 15 points difference. So in most cases, I would avoid a goalkeeper transfer. But some of you will have great outfield players, and if you want to make a goalkeeper transfer, then fine. I think Alisson, if you've not got triple Liverpool, Edison should start the last game. Pep said that he would. Dubravka, we're not actually 100% sure if he's going to start, so I'd probably avoid him. Mendy against Villa's probably just about as sound as they come. Ramsdale against Burnley, if you think that they'll do okay, but you're scraping the barrel with goalkeepers. Like Meslier, I don't even know if Bielsa has talked about Casilla, I think it is, the backup goalkeeper, and whether he'll start. In fact, I'll just have a quick look now, just to see, while I'm recording, just to see if he spoke about it. Because I'd be surprised if he wasn't asked. Let me try and see it here. No, I can't see anything about it. Yeah, Bruce said, Martin Dubravka, we expect them to be okay, but we're not 100% sure until they check later. And Bielsa doesn't look... Bielsa had previously confirmed that Casilla would start both of Leeds' final 2 matches. So if you think Leeds going to get a clean sheet, you could look at him. But a hit, I'm not sure, to be honest. Selling Kane, Fernandes, I don't think there's many teams that have got such a good team they should sell Kane. I know he and Spurs were so poor in the last game, but they haven't got the fans on the back in this one. If Leicester do end up having to go for it at some point during the game, there's going to be space in behind to exploit. I think Kane passing into Son or penalty or whatever. In most cases, I just wouldn't sell Kane. Fernandes, again, like I said earlier, I probably would if I had nothing else to do. Firmino versus defender. Like a lot of people are looking at Firmino versus Trent or Firmino versus Robertson. It depends on who the other player you're playing is. So like if it was Dallas and Firmino versus, I don't know, Wood and Robertson, I'd probably go the Wood and Robertson route. But it's close. Like I guess my initial thought is that you go for the attacker. Like if it's 4-4-2 versus 3-4-3, then I'd probably go for the attacker. But this is Trent and Robertson we're talking about. I expect them to get a clean sheet, so I'd probably side with the defender just about. And Harrison versus Rafinha. I'm going to go for Rafinha for all the reasons I said last week. I just think he is the best midfield option at Leeds, and that's that. So there we go. That was quite long. Hopefully it was useful. Loads of info packed in there. I'll try and do the chapters underneath so that you can just skip ahead if there's certain things that you want to hear or listen to. But if you have enjoyed this series, this season, if this video has been helpful, please do keep giving these videos a like. It does help out. And obviously they'll be back next season to get bigger and better, hopefully, or just to keep giving you all the same info or different info because we'll have different teams and players. But you know what I mean. Hit subscribe if you're new around here as well. And if you haven't checked out Patreon, if you want to support me and the channel a little bit further, please do check that out. Link in the description below. I'll leave it there. I'm going to hopefully put out a captaincy video tomorrow. For sure, I will have a deadline stream on Sunday and obviously the watch along plus the end of season stream as well, which is going to be good. Definitely have to crack open a few beers because this weekend is going to be mad. And yeah, that's it. I will see you tomorrow, hopefully, for captaincy. And obviously I'll do a Q&A video as well later today on Patreon if you've not already checked that out. Yeah, thanks for watching. Hit that like button, hit subscribe, and I'll see you soon.